Good morning, everyone. We're going to be starting shortly. We're just waiting for a couple more folks to join. But thanks for joining this morning. We look forward to sharing about the Business Pivot Grant Program. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. My name is David Oyadamari from Ecclesia Capital. You're here this morning because hopefully you're in the right place. You're here to see the Business Pivot Workshop webinar. So that's what we're going to be doing for the next 90 minutes. We will have time for some Q&A. I'm sure a lot of you here are interested in understanding a little bit more about the application process. So we'll be happy to do that. I wanted to make sure that if you have questions, to put it in the Q&A section, not the chat. It's easier for us to capture it out of the Q&A. So that's the two, looks like two bubbles, cloud bubbles icon in your Zoom bar there. So if you would do that for us, we certainly appreciate it. I will have hopefully one of my colleagues who will also join me answering some of the processing questions. Okay, so a little bit of who I am. I'm the founder, managing director of Ecclesia Capital, and we're helping the Chamber of Commerce on this program. We've worked with clients in over 20 different industries now, in over 87 years of experience. Really, my focus has been specifically to help local businesses be stronger, healthier, and really, it was around protecting and preserving our culture. I think especially the local small business community is really the stewards of our local culture. And then COVID happened, and you can imagine we've been quite busy. We're an innovation and strategy firm, and so there's a lot of our clients who've been asking, how do we pivot? How do we change how we operate? Do we need to change our business models? And that was squarely where that's where we've been playing. So I'm really excited and happy to be with you this morning. Like I said, our organization has been helping the chamber in trying to provide some advice and guidance in this area, and so I'm really excited to be with you this morning. Here's the agenda. I'm going to share a little bit of what our goals are going to be for the next 90 minutes. We'll talk through the mindset of what a pivot is. We'll talk about the foundation of this program from a content perspective on a system called the Value Builder system. I'll talk a little bit about Value Builder. It is a very well-known system among the Fortune top 10 books and systems for businesses and entrepreneurs. And so I think it's very relevant for what we're going through today in this COVID pandemic environment. I'm going to give you 5 ways that other business owners have pivoted their business in crises in past recessions, although this one was obviously quite unique. But it's just to get your wheels started. Be thinking about how would this apply to you, which makes an important point is that in this morning's presentation, as I go through a bunch of these concepts, really want you to be thinking about one question, and that is, how does this apply to me? And really embrace some of these things that are coming from other companies, industry types, and how what they've done and what they've learned can apply to you. Then I'll give you some specific tools that you can apply to helping your business pivot. And then we'll spend some time, at least 30 minutes, or depends how long we have here and how many questions we get, to specifically go through your questions and walk through the application process. So that's the order of what we'll do today, but we really wanted to start with the foundation of, what is a business pivot and how can we help you today? That's what this program is all about, okay? So just run through some of the goals. We'll go through again, what is the business pivot? Again, value builder, jumpstart some creative ways, give you some tools, and then we'll walk through the grant application. All right, so let's start with the mindset of what is a pivot, because that's maybe in some cases an overused word, but it's been used quite a bit now, as you can imagine. It's really a substantial change in a couple things. Your business model, how you make money, or how you operate in your operating model. And essentially that is at a very high level what we mean by helping your business pivot, right? It's either change the way you make money or change the way you operate to make money. And so we've listed on our website, also we have it on the application. Here are some different ways in which businesses can categorize their pivots. This is going to be important as you start to apply. But it also is going to be practical in the sense of how do you start thinking about what does this mean? What should I be doing coming out of COVID stronger and not just surviving because there's another grant program, right? So it could be a new product or service. And I'm going to share with you this morning some really interesting examples of what some businesses are doing. We also have other webinars scheduled for later this month into next. And you're going to hear some really creative things of what some local businesses are doing to pivot their businesses today. Sometimes it's reaching a new market, geographic or customer segment. I think the classic one here is there are a lot of businesses, and many of you, I think today on this webinar, who are now putting more emphasis and more resources on e-commerce. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. But that is a classic pivot, especially for now, when we have much less tourists coming to our islands. This is going to be really important to increase your addressable market. Sometimes it's new marketing or sales channel itself, right? So website, maybe you didn't have one or a robust one. Here's a good example. Sometimes it might be, how do I grow my business with sales strategy, a sales plan, developing that skill set and ability now. And that maybe you didn't do for quite some time, right? Maybe when you first started your business, it was all you being the salesperson and the business development person. And as your business has grown, maybe that stuff kind of, you step back a little bit and now you're having to do that again in earnest. And so that's another type of pivot. We talk about rebranding, repositioning of your company. And in some cases, physical distancing, right? A lot of the pivot and changes it might be around how you reorganize your retail frontage and what you've been doing in your business to maybe even work remotely, whereas before everyone was put together in an office space. And finally, and this is also a really important one, is around process improvement and automation, because sometimes you're thinking, a lot of our clients are thinking, when do I bring back employees again? How do I think about that? Should I? Can I automate that better so that I maybe can be a little bit more careful about how many people I bring back and when I bring them back? So I'll share a little bit of thoughts there. Okay, so that's really around the overall broad definition of business pivot. Now, let's talk a little bit about the mindset. So I think there's usually, when we work with business owners, there's really sort of the two broad categories that we see. One is the business owner who sometimes is, I get it. This has been devastating for a lot of businesses through this pandemic. And so it feels like an insurmountable obstacle, especially let's say if you were in a heavily tourist dependent business and you're just waiting for things to come back to normal, so to speak. And so there's this almost insurmountable obstacle that in some cases prevents you from seeing the broader vision of what could be. And what we're trying to do and instill and inspire people is to really think broadly to the vision that will help them think beyond the obstacles that's staring us in the face today. And so what my goal is for you this morning is to help you create that broad vision and that broader vision of your company and what business you're in, so that you can get past what's staring you in the face, which is, yes, a challenging environment, But what we're seeing is there is great hope, actually. And what a lot of people are able to do is get through this, not just survive, but get through this in some cases stronger and rebuild their businesses stronger than ever before. And that's where I get excited as someone, born and raised here in Hawaii. And I love our local businesses. And I want to see us all stronger as a result. I'm going to talk a little bit about this thing called the Value Builder System. A lot of the content I'm going to share with you today comes from this system. For those of you who may be aware, there's a gentleman named John Warlow, and his claim to fame is he wrote a book, this Fortune bestseller book called Built to Sell. And it was focused around 8 different drivers of a company's value. While he built it primarily to say, here's how you position your company to be sold and get the highest valuation when you sell your company, what you'll see is that same principle can apply whether you're in the market to sell your business or not. Because these 8 core drivers of value, as he calls it, is really what drives the overall value of your company. And if you focus on some of these 8 things, you'll increase the value of your company. And what he did is he put a lot of these principles online. And what I do with our clients is we actually take them through some of the videos and tools. And so for a lot of you today, I'm going to touch upon some of this. And if you'd like a deeper dive in some of these specific pivot tools, as I call them, which is really what John Warlow will call value drivers, we have other webinars scheduled, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And it's free. And you'll be able to do deep dives on this. And you'll be able to watch the videos. And you'll be able to actually apply the tools to your business. Okay, but these 8 drivers are really critical, all right? So I'll touch upon them really quickly around financial performance. This talks about, as a business, you're looking at top line revenue growth, you're looking at margins, you're looking at even the way you record and track your financial performance. So everything from, I do it in Excel, to QuickBooks, to maybe I hire a CPA. And obviously, the more formal your recording of your financial performance, the more credible it is. And so therefore, the higher the valuation of your company, so to speak. When you talk about growth, I'm going to cover a little bit about this today, but this is really around taking an existing product and maybe reaching out to a new market, right? It could either be a geographic market or reaching a new customer within a geographic area that you're already targeting. Or it could be the other way. Maybe you define and create a new product and expand that to existing customers for growth within your customer base. Or maybe even you decide you're going to take that new product and go outside to another geographic area or a new customer segment. So that's another tool, which again, I'll touch upon. The Switzerland structure of the driver is really focused around how dependent is your business on one or few customers, suppliers, or employees. Again, high risk if, let's say, 50% of your business comes from one large customer. And if that one large customer starts to have challenges or a competitor takes them away, your business is going to be severely impacted. That's a problem, obviously. Sometimes your supply chain comes from one or a few suppliers. And if they have some supply chain issues, that raises your risk of your company as well. And one that I think is near and dear to a lot of us, especially now as maybe our workforce has shrunk, that our number of teammates we have in our companies have shrunk, is, do you have key person risk? Do you have someone that is so critical to your organization that if they retired or they're hired by your competition or they just left or something, that your business would be in dire straits? So that's what that one refers to. The driver on valuation teeter-totter focuses on cash flow. Especially now, this is important. Cash is king. And there are many different ways to improve your cash flow, particularly during this time period. One that's been a driver that's been really, I think, trending quite high in during the pandemic, but even before, is recurring revenue. Recurring revenue simply means, and we're going to talk a lot about this today, simply means Do you have a subscription model or a consistent recurring revenue stream, so that with the inherent volatility of the market, where it's unclear where the demand will be, where it was before, and will it come back? Will tourists come back? Will they not come back? It's highly volatile. So when you have a recurring revenue and a stable revenue stream, that will smooth that out for you. It'll also help you with your inventory management and reduce your wastage, especially if you're in a business where you have perishable cost of goods. We also talk about monopoly control, which is a fancy way of saying, do you have market uniqueness? And so how do you differentiate yourself, especially now, from your competition and others who are sort of maybe even secondarily or tertiary in your market? So we'll talk a little bit about that today. Customer satisfaction, another driver here is just really around the Net Promoter Score. And for those of you not as familiar with the Net Promoter Score, it really boils down to something that all the data has shown, that really, if you can get people to answer a question positively, which is, how likely are you to refer your friends and family to this company and this product or service, their response to that one question it has a profound impact on loyalty, repeat purchase, and also the ability for them to refer people to your business. And then the last one is hub and spoke. And for a lot of small businesses, this is a key one. This is a driver which focuses on, is everything running through the business owner, and therefore the business can't grow and it can't expand and it can't pivot because the business owner is sort of the bottleneck. So that's what that one refers to. But in totality, I just wanted to give you just a high level, because in your business today, whatever your situation is, whatever you're going through, these are 8 different sort of filters or areas that you can start to look at in your business to see how can we improve to get through this stronger. And rather than focus on all 8 at once, what we would recommend is that you pick one and you laser focus on that one first, and then you can keep going down the others as well. Okay, so that at a high level is the value builder system. As I mentioned, and I'll talk about this a little later, we also have some webinars coming up this month and next that will do some deep dives in these areas. So if anything I talk about today starts to resonate with you, these deep dives are going to be exactly for you. This is your chance to actually, I'll give you the tool, I'll give you the videos free, just because we want to help. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to pause, take a look for if there's any questions on anything I've talked about so far, and then we'll get into some of the specific case studies. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so Brandon, there's some that's specific to the application, which if you don't mind, hold off on. Success case studies, small businesses have helped. I'm going to get into that, Rob. Let's see. Okay, all right. Sorry, because I'm just going through to make sure I'm making sure. Okay, so the presentation I'm going to share with you, the question came up, thank you for the question, Rob, is not just focused on mid-sized companies. Okay, so I've helped people who are sole proprietors, nonprofits, people from literally small companies to also large companies who are generating, 20, 30, 40, $50 million a year. So the principles apply. I think what I've come to see in my career is that business principles apply across industries, different sizes of companies, but it's really how you apply it to your own area. I'm happy to answer those questions as we go along, okay? But thanks for the question, appreciate that. Okay, let's dive right in. So let me give you 5 ways to pivot your business in a crisis. Now, obviously, there are a lot more than 5 ways, but the point of this, again, remember, is I'm just trying to start your creative wheels. All of you on this call who are business owners, by definition, I'm going to assume, and I think this is a good assumption, you're creative people, because otherwise you wouldn't be entrepreneurs. You wouldn't be business owners, right? There was an idea, a spark, And so my goal for you this morning is I'm going to start to like stoke that again, and try to get you to think, okay, I've got my business. Here's a once in a lifetime opportunity for me to reinvent it. What can I do? Okay, so that's what I've got for you this morning. So I have a good friend who's in the merchant processing business. These are the folks who provide the credit card terminals. And my question to him was, what businesses are doing better post-COVID compared to pre-COVID? And there are many, okay? There are several. But I was really curious to know and try to glean what are the successful ones who are pivoting doing so that they're better post-COVID, okay? And what can we learn from that and teach our clients and our friends and families to do for in their business, okay? So here are three companies, types of companies that are doing better, right? So there's the Poke Bowl company, there's the Korean barbecue, and there's the liquor store, okay? So what's challenging sometimes in the webinar is I can't get real-time feedback. But the question I want to pose to you is, what do all these businesses have in common now that I've just told you that one thing they all have in common is that they're all doing better in a post-COVID environment, right? What is it that they have and what is it that's happening such that they're doing better, okay? And then what can we learn from that? So I'm going to give you now there's no right or wrong answer. These are our hypotheses, but again, it's to start to get you to think differently and hopefully trigger some things for your business. Number one is, I would say for the Poke Bowl company, it's an affordable luxury. And what do I mean by this? So, I have a degree in economics, and one of my professors had told us many years ago that a classic counter-cyclical or a classic product that did better in a recession was lipstick. Lipstick sales typically in a recession would grow as above its baseline, in a normal economic environment. And the reason that the economists would say that is that the theory is because lipstick was an affordable luxury, and that the people who are shopping in the malls and they go to the department stores and all that, they would buy a lot of things in a normal economic environment. But when money was tight, they would find something that they could afford that gave them a little happy. And that happened to be lipstick. And so in the same way, the theory here is that could Poke Bowl be an affordable luxury, right? I can't go out and go out and have that sushi dinner I enjoyed every week or something, right? Or maybe I can't afford the 20-something per pound ahi, but I can afford a $10, $12 Poke Bowl, right? Sashimi quality, tastes good, I can do that, right? So maybe it's an affordable luxury. Now the Korean barbecue, I don't know for those of you who have done a Korean barbecue, have eaten a Korean barbecue, but it's a lot of food, right? I mean, it's 4 choice vegetables, and then there's tons of food that can probably feed a family of 4 for 2 days. No, I mean, but the point is, for one person, I could probably eat that plate over 2 days easy, maybe 3, right? But the thinking is, it's a budget stretcher, right? And I know, Lane, you'd said like, hey, these are not home-based businesses, right? But what I'm saying is, I think this is a way to think broadly of what these businesses are. Now, the other one, the liquor store. Well, I think this one is probably easiest in that bars are closed, right? In fact, on a national level, the data's come in. It says, compared to last year, tequila and vodka sales are up 75%. So I think what it was telling us is that people value, right, their drinks, that maybe their pauhanas are happening at home, right? And that their favorite watering hole is not open. But all this, I would argue that all these 3 types of businesses, what they all have in common, therefore, is that it's broadening the vision of what business they're in, right? See, if you were the Poke Bowl or the Korean barbecue or the liquor store owner, and you only thought of yourself as, we make Poke Bowls, or oh, we're Korean food, or we're a liquor store, you would be missing the broader need that you are serving today, right? Because I think some of this is about convenience. Some of this is about takeout. Some of this is about how do you package things so that people can feel like this is a budget stretcher for me. I can afford this, so we're trying to help people as a business owner, and you're trying to help consumers bring some normalcy back to their life again, right? It's not like they can completely change on a dime. People have behaviors and norms. So all of these three things, by broadening the vision of the need that they're serving, I think what they're doing is they're trying to allow people to kind of get some of their normalcy back in their life, right? They can have that affordable luxury. They can do the budget stretcher, and they can still get their pauhana, but it's just not at their favorite bar anymore, right? But these are ways, and you'll see like there's restaurants that are doing mixed drink kits to take home, right? They can mix it with your favorite vodka that you bought at the liquor store, and the Korean barbecue will have like bigger kits and sets and things like this. So and the poke bowl does nice takeout, right? So these are things that I think are happening, and is a common theme you're going to see through a lot of the business pivots. There was a Harvard Business School professor, Theodore Levitt. He said this many years ago, and it is so true today, just as it was many years ago when he first said it. And he said this: people don't want to buy a 1/4 inch drill. They want a 1/4 inch hole. See, when you pivot your business, the idea is to start with great clarity on the specific problem you're trying to solve. It's at a fundamental, basic need of what people are looking for, particularly now at stay-at-home, pandemic, social distancing, right? That it's not selling the 1/4 inch drill. It's not selling poke bowl. It's not selling Korean plate, right? Or a bottle of tequila, right? It's what are they trying to really achieve? What is their broader need, right? I want an affordable luxury, right? I miss fresh fish, right? I want to feed my family affordably, right? And we're going to see some of this when we get into the restaurant pivot webinars that are coming up in November. One of the panelists is MW Restaurant, Michelle and Wade, and I don't want to steal the thunder, but they have this kind of stuff in mind. I'm going to tell you guys that I was blown away of how they're thinking so creatively about their business, even though dining has been shut down, right? And so this is the kind of stuff I'm hoping will inspire all of you. So the first way people are pivoting their business then is broadening your vision of what business you're in. This guy, Kevin Surahiro, he runs a Japanese hot pot restaurant called Nabe Maido in Market City Shopping Center, right? The one with the Food Land and the Walgreens and I think it's like Donut King, right? Those guys. So he's there, and he's been shut down since March, right? Since the beginning of the whole COVID thing and when everything was shut down. And he was 100% dine-in. And so what happened was, and he has hot pot. So you can imagine, how do you deliver hot pot, right? Not easy. Kevin broadened the vision of what business he was in. Instead of saying, okay, well, I'm a hot pot business restaurant, so how do I just put that in a takeout container and send it out? Instead, Kevin said, wait a minute, what do people want at this time, right? And what business am I in, more broadly speaking? And what he came up with, he goes, I have a healthy product here, right? I have a convenient and a healthy product that I can make takeout and delivery. I'm going to share a little bit of what he's doing that extended this. But what Kevin was able to do when he started to broaden that he's not a hot pot dine-in restaurant, but he was much broader speaking, a healthy meal, and he made it convenient, his sales start to take off. And he's not out of the woods. Nobody is, but if not for his broadened vision, Kevin himself said he would have closed several months ago. So number one, broaden the vision of what business you're in. Number two, there's this guy, Ader Suleiman. Now, in 2012, This was coming out of the Great Recession, as many of you may recall. And right around 2011, 2012 was the economy was slowly starting to get back again to a normalcy, right? And what Ader was, he and his partner were IT guys. Yeah, literally they were like two smart guys with laptops, and they would do any kind of IT project that was thrown their way. Right around 2012, for those of you who are in the IT space will know, what started to take off was the cloud. In particular, Amazon Web Services. A lot of companies were taking their technology and migrating it to the cloud. Ader decided, you know what? This is what we're going to be known for. This is going to be our unique differentiator in the market. We are the world's experts at converting technology for businesses into Amazon Web Services. And when Ader did that, his business absolutely took off. He went from 2 employees to 70 employees in a matter of several years, and he ended up selling his company to a Fortune 500 IT giant and did pretty well for himself. But he did it not because he spread himself thin across all IT projects. He was known for one thing, and that was the Amazon Web Services expert. The third example, in 2003, some of you may recall that the economy was in a jobless recovery stage. Now, unemployment was nowhere near as high as it is today, but you can imagine that this was the time where there was a lot of challenge today. The Dow Jones, if you can believe, fell, I think, below 8,000 in February. It's hard to believe. Mortgage rates were quite low, not as low as they are today, but they're very low. And so George Bush at the time, our president at the time, was cutting taxes to stimulate spending. So sounds sort of familiar, right? Fiscal stimulus, monetary stimulus was also in the works. Anyway, Joshua Dick's story was he had inherited his company from his parents called Umex. Umex had 7 different product lines, you guys, okay? In total, they did 1 million in annual sales across the 7 product lines. In the backdrop of this economic crisis, right? But what he did was he decided that he was going to jettison 6 out of those 7 products and focus all his limited resources, if that sounds familiar to all of you, right? He focused his limited resources on a core product line that he thought he had the greatest potential to scale. And so instead of taking his resources and spreading it across all of these different areas, he said, look, we're going to be known for one thing. And he took his resources and he put it in cleaning supplies for commercial coffee makers, right? So you talk about a niche of a niche. That's what Joshua did. He really took his limited resources in a challenging environment and said, we're going to be known for this one thing. And he grew from 1 million in revenue to over 5 million in EBITDA, or operating income, right? And so when he did that, he ended up growing his business exponentially, ultimately selling his business for a double-digit multiple on EBITDA. So that was another example, I think, from a pivot is if you're wondering, okay, I want to conserve, I want to make sure I deploy my resources properly. I think one of the lessons learned from this one is, should you niche down? Should you focus on an area where you can be known for and go after, which is somewhat similar to the last one. Ader became unique for one thing. Joshua jettisoned 6 out of his 7 product lines and focused specifically on one that he could do well and had good margins. This guy, John Moore, also very interesting. So the last big recession we had, as many of you know on this call, is 2008, right? The financial crisis, the Great Recession, as they've called it. His company, 3D4 Medical, was focused on a very specific thing. It was 3-dimensional models of the human body that he photographed, and he licensed the images to textbook publishers. And that's what happened. But in 08, it turned really badly. It dried up. The textbook manufacturers stopped buying his services because the economy was pretty hard hit at this time. And so he was pretty close to closing up shop, pretty close to just saying, I'm done, I'm out of here. But what he ended up doing was he took his resource. He said, what are we good at? What are the things that we could actually apply in this environment? And what he decided to do is created his own digital app. And he took these 3D models of the human anatomy and he started selling through the digital app directly to medical students, teachers, and medical professionals. So he went direct, right? So you talk about a new market. It wasn't so much a new geographic market, but a new customer segment. So instead of focusing his emphasis on textbook publishers, he focused more broadly on the medical profession, medical students, medical faculty and staff. And he ended up selling his app to the likes of folks like Stanford and Cambridge University. 3D for Medical grew pretty rapidly during this time. And long story short, because of his pivot, entering a new market, he ended up selling his company for over $50 million. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to sell your company for $50 million, but the principle, whether you're a sole proprietor or a smaller company, is the same, which is there a different market you can reach, a different customer segment that you have certain resources that you're good at, that you can deploy to get through this stronger and healthier. Fifth example, bring it home a little locally. I love this organization. In full disclosure, I'm a subscriber to them, and this is Ma'o Farms. Ma'o Farms has created a recurring revenue model through their CSAs, or community supported agriculture boxes. You pay a fee for each box, and it's just charged to my credit card, and I get like a surprise box of vegetables from the farm out in Waianae, right? And the point of this is it creates a recurring revenue stream for them. Now, the story from Ma'o Farms, and when I spoke to them, was that before the pandemic, 70% of their revenues was coming from like the restaurants and the grocery stores, things like that, right? Their traditional channels. Well, of course, when COVID hit and the restaurants were shut down, that all dried up. And that's when they pivoted. And it grew their CSA box revenue stream. And when I last spoke to them, it flipped, and 70% of their income and revenue now come from the CSA boxes. Now, there are others. Local Ia does the fresh seafood, right? And Oahu Fresh, Kakumana, and FarmLink Hawaii. But what I really love about this model, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when I get into it this morning, is that recurring revenue, subscriptions, is a big trend. And it's because it's going to stabilize your demand and your income, and also help you manage inventory better. So I would encourage you to take serious consideration on that. But in summary, again, there are a lot of other ways that businesses are pivoting. I wanted to just give you some 5 different examples of businesses that are pivoting during the crisis. I don't think anybody, I would say, is out of the woods if they're pivoting. Great if they are, but what it's doing is it's doing more than just surviving, right? It's building a new business model. It's building a new operating model upon which to springboard from. Okay, so I'm going to pause there and look for any questions you folks might have, and then I will get into the tools. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. I think most of the questions are still. I want to say I'm going to hold them for now, folks. When we get into the specific application questions, and we're going to go through all of that stuff. Okay. So let's switch gears and go straight into some tools now that you can apply to help pivot your business. I know many of you maybe have already started pivoting. Some of you are in the middle of it. Some of you have not started. And my hope is to give you some tools that help you do well. And tool number 1 is to have, I'm going to give you 7 questions to ask yourself to create that broader vision for your business that we talked about early on. Okay. So let's just start here, right? When your home is damaged in a disaster, whether it's a tsunami or a hurricane or something has come through, you have a choice. Would you rebuild the same home exactly the way it was? Or would you build something you've always dreamed in its place? And I think all of us would say, you could look at the glass half full right now. And you can say, this is a once in a generation opportunity for you to rebuild your business exactly the way you've always wanted it. This is your opportunity. And to do that, I will propose to you that you would go through these 7 questions right now. And the first question is, what problem is your business trying to solve? Now go back to Theodore Levitt, right? Are you in the business of trying to give people a 1/4-inch drill, or are you really trying to help them get a 1/4-inch hole, right? What problem are you trying to solve? Number 2 is, who's most affected by that problem? Meaning, who's your target market? Who's your customer? What's the profile? What does that customer look like who has this problem, right? Number 3, what does your company do to solve it? What is your solution, right? And then 4, what will give you that enduring competitive advantage? Meaning, what makes your solution so unique, right? That you and what you're offering is not the same as the 10 other businesses that are out there today, right? Clarifying that uniqueness is going to be critical as you go forward. What does the world look like when you've solved the problem? So this is the vision, right? What is your vision for what your company is going to look like once you've solved it, right? This problem that that segment has or segments have. How will you know, right? What are your success measures? How are you going to measure that you've arrived? And the last piece, how will you make money? Meaning, what's your business model, right? Sometimes you might have to change your fee structure. Sometimes you're going to have to change your pricing plans or packages. Subscription, if you don't have a subscription model today in your business, that's a really good example of a business model change, right? That you now, instead of just waiting for people to show up and bring business to you, right? You're going to actually go out and get recurring revenue, right? From those who are most loyal to you, right? So these are some of the questions. Now, when we go through this with our clients, right? On one level, you could answer this in 7 minutes. But really, when you really go through this deeply and you think about these carefully, this could take you 7 weeks, right? 7 hours, 7 weeks, and months to answer. And that's okay, right? The point is you start somewhere, right? And as a team and whoever your inner circle is, you go through the answers to these questions, and that starts to broaden your vision of what company you're in. And just like the poke bowl and the Korean barbecue and the liquor store, right? It will challenge you to think more broadly. And then about what problem you're solving. What fundamental need are you meeting? And then from there, your business will flow, okay? So that's tool number 1, right? Is the vision tool. Tool number 2, creating market uniqueness. So this one is really important from the perspective that if you don't have a unique product, especially now in this pandemic, post-pandemic environment, it's going to be very difficult for people to know why they should buy from you. And so your competitive state has heightened in many ways. Okay, so there are really 2 ways to think about creating market uniqueness, in my opinion. Way number 1, okay, is you just create a better mousetrap, meaning that your product is so unique that the next best alternative is not even close, if not non-existent, right? This, however, is extremely hard to do because once you have a good product, someone will copy you, right? So, but the point is, you could start in saying, we have a better mousetrap. At Nabe Amaido, I mentioned this earlier, and I said I would talk about it later. One of the very interesting things that Kevin is doing is he created this thing called microwavables. Basically what this is he took his Nabe pot, he put it into individual self-serve bowls. But the genius was the broth is gelatinized. So that it's refrigerated, you can put it in the freezer, and then you throw it in the microwave for 4.5 minutes, and you have a hot, fresh meal. What did that now allow him to do? Deliver. So his delivery business, his takeout business has grown because now I'm not carrying a hot pot in a container that might spill and I got to eat it right away because it's hot. Now it's frozen or it's refrigerated. And that has essentially helped him and his pivot. Better mousetrap, right? The one on the right is from Shimazu store. So for those of you that may or may not know or familiar with Shimazu, they're a shave ice shop, iconic shave ice shop in Nu'uanu, on School Street, right? Not a lot of parking, right? But famous, iconic in our community. What Kaylin did here was, the challenge she had was people wanted a treat. They wanted something to make them feel happy during this pandemic, right? But when you're stay at home and your family and friends are at home or somewhere, you cannot take out shave ice. That's not a classic takeout product, right? So what did she do? She took her secret recipe, the shimazu syrups, put it into ice cakes. And now ice cakes account for more of her sales than shave ice. And people are showing up and buying 40 or 50 at a pop. You know what I mean? The shave ice cake cups. But that's an example of what I would call a better mouse trap. Now, the other angle at creating market uniqueness, besides a better mousetrap, is your marketing strategy. And your marketing strategy can then be thought on two different dimensions. Dimension number one is how unique or differentiating is a particular feature or benefit of your product or maybe your company itself. Or the other dimension is how the degree to which people or your customers care. Okay, so the classic example is Tesla, right? And Tesla has these three attributes. Okay, so on this y-axis going vertically is the degree of differentiation this feature benefit has. And on the x-axis or horizontally is the degree to which customers care. Okay, so up here, you have a feature benefit called designed in California. Tesla cars are designed in California, not in Germany, not in Japan, not in Detroit, okay? So highly differentiating in its positioning, okay? But do people care where a car is designed, really? Yeah, so low on the care scale, high on the differentiation scale. Here is a feature benefit on performance. Tesla cars are high performing, right? But so are cars from BMW and Lexus and Mercedes, right? And Toyota, right? So these, it's people really care about performance of their vehicle, no doubt, but it's not very differentiated because a lot of other manufacturers have high performing cars as well. Now here's this feature benefit called zero emissions. That is something that was unique to Tesla. And so you'll see that they actually, in their early advertising campaigns, they doubled down on this. Yes, there were cars designed in California that were high performing, but there were zero emissions. And that's how Tesla's marketing strategy and brand grew. And this is why, from a uniqueness perspective, they own this market today. Now, there are other EV providers, but they are a distant second to Tesla. This is why Tesla is so big and is a bigger company than even Ford, right? So, and closely approaching where they'll be starting to be listed on like the S&P and Dow Jones, right? So tool number three, growing your business. This is something that's near and dear to a lot of us right now in the pandemic. And the tool I just will share with you is around your product and your market, okay? And this is, I alluded to this a little bit already, but think of the classic nostalgic kids lemonade stand, right? Where you sell lemonade at the driveway of your house, on the driveway of your house, right? And you sell to people driving by in your neighborhood. Well, that would be in this green area, right? Lemonade in my driveway to my neighbors who are, passing by my house. However, what would happen if I decided to then sell lemonade at the beach? So I take my secret great lemonade recipe, but I go to the beach and I sell it to the people, at Ala Moana Beach Park or something like that, right? That would be an existing product, new market, a little bit riskier. Or I might say, you know what? I'm really good at making lemonade. I could take that same know-how and I'm going to make iced tea. And I'm going to add iced tea to my menu in the driveway of my house. So existing market, but new product. The point of this is the yellow areas will represent a moderately higher risk profile for that strategy, right? Of course, the highest strategy is if you sold iced tea at the beach, new product, new market, and that's up here in red, right? So why do I share this from a growth strategy perspective is you really want to think about your strategy in terms of not only is it new product, existing product, but you want to like understand what market are you going after, and that would essentially dimension for you your risk profile and your risk appetite. Okay, so you want to go, I would say, through a yellow to red. Don't go straight from the green to red. High risk, right? So you want to look at, is it a new market we can go after, or maybe it's a new product that I'm going to sell to my existing customer base. That's just a simple way to think about it. So for a lot of our clients, what we share is that if you don't have an e-commerce strategy today, I would encourage you to do so and expand your addressable market. You know, it's a lot easier to take your existing products and then sell it to a broader market, right? So here's some examples. If you just look at the folks like the ones like Amazon and eBay and Walmart, they reach over 500 million visitors every single month, right? And getting to Amazon Marketplace, there are people who can help you do that, right? And really, especially as you get into the holiday season, and I'm sure all of you are preparing for that if you're in retail, you know, that's something you really should be strongly considering. eBay is another one. And Walmart's a little bit more challenging. There's a little bit more curation process there. And then when you get to Facebook Marketplace, that's a lot more localized, right? That's like a little better form of Craigslist, I would say, right? But the point is, just in this inner circle, you're reaching millions of customers that you weren't reaching before the pandemic. In some cases, if you weren't already listed on these marketplaces. But even beyond the big ones, there are a lot of others. Etsy has 650,000 visitors every month. Bonanza, who I didn't really know before, there's like 5 million. And Alibaba out in China, 55 million, right? So there are a number of these, and there's way more than I've listed here to increase your presence, right? Because from an addressable market perspective, yeah, 1.4 million residents in the state of Hawaii. 2019, we had 10.4 million visitors. So 11.8 was your total addressable market if you just sold here in Hawaii. Well, that explodes a lot bigger once you go online. And so my point here is you could do it for a lot cheaper than going to renting or leasing a kiosk even at Famous Amoa Shopping Center, right? You can reach a lot more people. So how do you do that is I would encourage you to really focus on an e-commerce strategy and kit. And there in the Hawaii Biz Pivot website, there is an online marketplace where there are going to be service providers that can help you do exactly that. Get a design, a website, get your social media strategy up and running. And the ones that are on the marketplace know that in order for it to qualify for expense reimbursement under this grant, they're going to have to make sure that you can put that reimbursement expense by November 23rd, right? The application deadline. And it has to be delivered, services rendered by the end of December or December 30th to be exact, right? So if this is something that you're interested in and it's important to your business, then I would say jump on it, okay? Tool number four. Tool number four gets into scaling your business. This is really how do you free up your business so that it can grow, it can expand. And I think the classic example I love to share is the modern dentist, right? So if you recall, if you're like me, when I was growing up, the dentist experience, going to the dentist was very different than it is today. In the old days, when I was growing up, I would go to the dentist's office and I'll be greeted by someone. But then when I sat down in the chair, the dentist inspected my teeth, gave my x-ray, and cleaned my teeth. Today, and that might take all of, I don't know, 45 minutes, maybe, maybe up to an hour, right? Today, I might see my dentist for less than 2 minutes, right? Just to inspect my teeth, because there's the hygienist that does the cleaning, there might be a tech or the hygienist who's actually doing the x-rays. But the point is, the modern dentist practice now can probably see 20 plus patients a day, whereas the old model was maybe like 6 to 8 a day, right? And so you can imagine now that has completely changed the business model and because of the operating model of the dentist practice. So what do I mean for you? The tool would be to take all your business functions in your business, the equivalent of a dentist practice, breaking up the cleaning, the x-rays, inspection, et cetera, right? And you list it all down, and then you run it across this filter of what's teachable, valuable, and repeatable. Teachable meaning, is that particular business function something that you can teach a teammate or staff member to do, right? Or maybe even outsource. Is it valuable, meaning how important is it for you, the business owner, to be doing that function? Or is this something that can be done by someone else, like answering customer service inquiries, right? Not as valuable for you to do, right? But when I talk about strategy, product development, probably the owner's got to do that, right? And then repeatable, meaning how often does this function happen, over time, right? And the more it happens, the more valuable it would be for you to find a resource to do it. So what we do is we take clients through a tool, and we will actually help them plot their business functions across teachability, as well as value and how repeatable it is, right? So as I mentioned to you, we will have a deep dive on this tool. You can look online at hawaiibizpivot.org, and we'll go through this. We'll give you the tool. You can do this and apply this for your business as well, and maybe even identify opportunities. Say, okay, now's the right time that maybe we should hire someone to do this, or just outsource it entirely. And we help people determine when is the right time, and how valuable their time really is, that they should be having someone else do it. Let me get into the last tool, which is recurring revenue, which is one of my favorites here. And the example I like to share with people is I'll compare Costco with Target and Starbucks back in the end of 2019. Okay, so the net earnings, if you look at these three companies, is very similar, around 3.6 billion, 3.3, 3.6 billion. Okay, number of stores is pretty interesting, right? So Starbucks, 28, way more physical infrastructure than like a Costco and even a Target, right? Now, arguably, Starbucks much smaller footprint, right? Costco, big warehouses, right? But you can imagine the amount of money that's being spent in that delivery system and the infrastructure and the staff and the people higher as you get to like larger number of stores. But this is where the yellow is where I really want to focus your attention. Costco, 3.35 billion of their earnings came from memberships, right? So if you thought that Costco is making money on what you bought in that warehouse, think again. They're making money on the membership that you're paying every year. In fact, their retention rate of their membership is somewhere in like the mid to high 80s, right? This is a juggernaut, right? The PE ratio back in 2019. Now, PE, for those not know, is price earnings ratio. Price of the stock divided by the earnings per share, okay, of that stock. Why is this important? This is a way for Wall Street analysts to say, this is what we think is the growth or the upside potential of this particular company, right? So it's at this time, in this point in time, when I took the snapshot, it's trading at 35 times its earnings. It's thinking that Costco is pretty rich, right? There's a high expectation on this stock. Compare that to Target, which is it's twice as the expectations are higher than Target, and at that time higher than Starbucks. Now, Starbucks since then, its earnings took a big hit, as you can imagine. So this is a lot different number. But the concept that I'm trying to make is that you can see that they're already forecasting a greater upside in many ways. So the market cap or the valuation of this company of Costco is 133 billion, which is 2.5 times that of Target, 1.5 times that of Starbucks. Not quite, but you could almost say that Costco was worth almost as much as Target and Starbucks combined, right? So the point I'm trying to make here is the power of Costco is really right here in its membership recurring revenue base. And not to be left behind, Amazon, as we know, Amazon Prime is its juggernaut membership base. People on Prime spend $1,400 a year compared to those who are not on Prime who spend $600. And this is the shocking thing. 82% of US households are Prime members. I'm going to guess in Hawaii, that's like 90%. Okay. But I mean, This is what's happening, guys. And guess what? Walmart, you heard this, Walmart Plus is their version, right, of a membership subscription model. The largest company on the planet, Apple, came up with their own subscription model, recurring revenue, called Apple One. And I think that we're just seeing just the tip of the iceberg, you know. Amazon has, you can't find this regularly, but Amazon has their subscription boxes, okay? And these are ways, like in this particular one, if you're a Trekkie and you love Star Trek, you can pay like $17 or $18 a month and they're gonna send you a unique Star Trek t-shirt. If you love the Marvel universe, they have Marvel products that will arrive on your doorstep every month. You have pets, beauty supplies, you name it, right? Companies are pouring a lot of money into this area, recurring revenue, subscriptions, and I think it's going to grow, right? My favorite example I've been telling you is Nabi Amaida has done exactly that, right? And they have their own monthly and annual subscription boxes. What has that done? It's created this stable revenue stream that can cover a good chunk of their fixed expenses right now. I'm going to encourage all of you to strongly consider this. So if any of these tools are of piqued any interest in you, what I want to share with you, these are the dates when we're going to have deep dives, and we're going to spend 1 hour going to much depth into each of these tools. You will be given the tool, online tool. You'll be given the videos, really short, like maybe 3 to 5 minute videos, where you can do this for your company and apply it to your company. So I'd love to see you. Please go on to hawaiibizpivot.org and register for those. And then we'll give you access to the tool and we'll go into deep dive together, okay, on those. I also wanted to point out, we have some really interesting and creative webinars coming up. I call it the restaurant pivots. So on November 2nd at 1 p.m., Roy Yamaguchi and Jeremy Shigekane and Mark from High Steakhouse, these 3 restaurants are doing some really interesting things in Pivot. And you don't want to miss hearing them on November 2nd. And whether you're in the restaurant business or not, I think it'll give you some interesting things to think about. And then on November 12th, we're going to hear from Michelle and Wade from MW. And then we're going to hear from John Matsubara at Feast. And then I've talked about Kevin and Nabe Amaido at length, but he's going to be there as well. And that's also from 1 to 2 p.m. I would encourage you to register for those. I'm excited because I've spoken to them and they have some really creative, interesting ways they're pivoting their business that I think will be valuable for all of you. Let me see, any specific questions? Okay. So subscription question around jewelry. Yes, I think, so one of the things about subscription models we should think about is that the degree to which your product doesn't have a shelf life, right? So if it's not perishable, the length of time in which your subscription happens should be longer, right? So let me give you an example, or I'll apply to this. If you're in the jewelry business, the question you're going to ask yourself is, how often are people going to need jewelry, right? So you're probably not going to have a monthly subscription because people are not going to want every single month another one to arrive, right? They might start for the first 2-3 months and they're like, okay, I'm done, right? So what it's going to mean is you might want to put them on a annual subscription, right? So that changes your mindset, the frequency and the shelf life of your product. In some cases, I'm going to ask you, broaden the vision of what business you're in. If you're thinking I'm just in the jewelry business or high-end jewelry business, that's one thing. But if you broaden your vision, well, but maybe I'm actually in a different type of business. I'm making it up. I don't know your business very well, but in a high-end jewelry, maybe it's a statement. When you're into high-end jewelry, it's really a statement. In my view, would be it's part of someone's brand of who they are, right? It's the same reason why some people purchase vehicles or trade out their vehicle every year or every 2 years, right? There's some people who will drive the Toyota for 300,000 miles, okay? But there's other people who will change out their car every 1 or 2 years. The people who change out their car frequently, I think, is because the car is a reflection of their brand. In high-end jewelry, that might be, if you broaden the vision of what you're doing, you're not in the jewelry business, you might be in the personal brand business. If that was true, I'm making it up, okay? But if that was true, then I would say your subscription then can reflect that. In other words, maybe instead of people purchasing high-end jewelry, maybe they are leasing high-end jewelry. And so what it is they need to always be refreshing their brand through you. So your subscription might end up being a high-end jewelry sort of lease subscription, okay? Very similar to people who are buying the BMW on a lease versus buying it outright, okay? Just a thought, but hopefully that helps you in some ways, okay? I do want to make sure we have enough time to do the pivot application, and my colleague Stacy Katakura from Accumulus is with me here on the panel. So I'm going to run through real quick this and the application, and then we'll open it up for Q&A to all of you. Okay, and we already have a bunch of Q&As already. Stacy, I don't know if you want to start flipping through those as I go through the application. Okay, so really there's business eligibility and then there's expense eligibility, right? So the business eligibility, companies or nonprofits registered to do business in Hawaii. Okay, it's fewer than 100 employees. You have to have suffered economic injury to COVID-19, operate in a physical commercial space. So again, I know we talked about home-based. I get it. I empathize that home-based businesses are struggling as well. But this is really focused on the physical commercial location. Your property where you operate out of has to be commercially zoned. And then you have to have been in business prior to March 20th. See? So that's the business eligibility. Around the expense side, it's March 20th to December 30th is the covered period. So little nuance, okay, folks, is that unfortunately, if you have a service for the month of December 31st is not included. I know it's a little bit awkward and painful, but you're gonna have to prorate it and subtract out the 1 day in December. That's a kind of a CARES Act thing. The application period for which you apply, the deadline is November 23rd, but know that it's a first come, first serve until money runs out. So you're gonna wanna do this quickly. And so some people ask, well, how does that work, right? I mean, if the services are gonna be rendered in December, but my application has to be submitted by the 23rd of November, the way to best understand this is that you wanna be billed and pay for that service before November 23rd, and then submit that for expense reimbursement. Okay, it can be rendered and delivered in December, but you would have been paid for and invoiced for it as part of your expense reimbursement application, okay? The other thing people will say, oh, first come, first serve, can I just start rolling all my expenses every single day? And the answer is no, do not do that. You can imagine what will happen on the back end should you start to roll piecemeal. We want you to, one shot, bring all your application in one nice, package and submit it one per company, okay? The maximum will be $10,000, okay? It's going to exclude any other reimbursement that you got from other CARES Act program or any county business assistance programs. This is business pivot, so this is not rent, utilities, payroll, right? That kind of stuff, PPE. So we have some specific definitions on physical distancing stuff. What does it include? Examples. I talked about it: web design, design of your packaging, consumer packaging, maybe a new product, social media marketing, e-commerce. You hired some consultants, some professional service help to pivot your business, maybe some physical distancing measures after October 1. People say, well, what about before October 1? And the thinking is that the other grant programs provided you some relief pre-October 1. So this one, we wanted to help people post-October 1. Okay. And then again, here are some of the categories. So when you fill out the application, we're going to ask you to put your expenses into the category that best fits. Now, you might have an expense that span more than one category, right? Put it in the one that was most relevant, and that's how you're going to do it. And you can upload your receipts. So real quick, if you haven't taken a look at the application, apologize, it's a little hard to see, but it's going to ask you a bunch of yes, no questions. The reason for that is if you answer no or like, incorrectly or in an ineligible way, the application will kind of just stop. So it's making sure that you understand your eligibility, and then you'll put in your contact information. And then once you do that, you start to upload the different pieces of information about your let's say your 941, W-9, things like this, so that we can make sure your business is eligible. Then in the expense reimbursement side, like I mentioned, you're going to put a brief, you're going to talk about your pivot a little bit here, so you can help the reviewer understand and make sure it's really clear what your pivot is and how these expenses relate to it. You're going to put a brief description, what the cost is, and then you're going to upload the receipt in that area. Okay, so make it very easy for the reviewer, because otherwise it'll delay your application. And then you're going to have an attestation here, which will basically, you agree to, that what you say is true and all of that, and then we upload it from there. Okay, so that's at a high level what it looks like, and we will go through your questions now. Okay, so I'll just start at the top. Clients are co-working space, sublease, desk or office, classified as period. So I don't know if you talk about the sublease as commercial, physical commercial location. As long as it's commercially zoned, yes, it's good. Let's see. Home-based business question. You have to operate out of a physical location. Your place of operation needs to be a commercially zoned area. Let's see here. I'm on Melissa. So question is via Gelato, middle of marketing our pivot, not spend all our money yet, but marketing, apply for the pivot. I can apply today, but we will incur expenses towards the pivot next week. Can I add those expenses next week? We want you to bundle it in one application rather than enrolling it. So if you know you're going to spend it, the recommendation is to pay for it, do it, and then the services can be rendered later. So in a marketing situation, you can pay for it, you get invoiced for it, put in your application, but then the actual marketing service can be rendered later in December. Hopefully that helps. The other question is, how can we coordinate using technical consulting offered, such as to help us redesign a space and its usage in time to make a plan and determine expenses to submit by the November deadline? Michelle, I think my suggestion on that one is first check the online marketplace for a consultant who can help you. The ones who went into the marketplace should understand the rules of this grant reimbursement program. So, which means they understand that you have to bill and pay before that November 23rd deadline. And then the service rendered later is fine, but it has to be by December 30th. So hopefully that helps. Let's see. Many small businesses work on location. Oh no, we did that one, I think, right? Yeah, sorry. Let's see. Sorry, it's hard. Every time a new question comes in, I think it scrolls.
Do you want me to read some of the questions to
sure.
you? Okay. So the one at the top of the list is, my business is targeting Japanese and I'm thinking to renew my web page to suit the new way. If I hire a Japanese web designer in Japan and pay in Japanese yen, is that covered?
Yeah, I mean, foreign currency doesn't matter, right? So
yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, just as long as your business is based in Hawaii, it should be covered. Whatever expenses you pay in whatever currency or country it's purchased from should qualify.
Obviously, you're getting reimbursed in US dollars though. So there has to be some conversion for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not getting paid in yen.
Okay. Next one, I think you already answered this. My office is at a co-working space. Does that count for a physical place of business?
Right.
So yeah. Yes.
Commercial, yeah. Commercial location, yes.
Just to clarify, the consulting and professional services to pivot are reimbursable as part of the 10K. I think you just answered that one too.
Yep.
Yes.
see.
Do we apply and then get our receipts in order to do what we have to do, or do we have to have the receipts when we apply?
Please put your receipts when
Yeah,
you apply.
the grant is a reimbursement program, so you would have had to pay for the goods or services before you apply. So next question, would iPads and phones qualify for reimbursement for dine-in restaurant pivot into takeout only? This includes internet-based cash register and web designs.
Yeah. I think where we landed on this one is it does, right? As long as it has to be tied directly to a pivot. You know, I just realized you're reading from the chat. I'm looking at the Q&A. So I was like, where are you reading from? Okay, I gotcha. Got it. Okay.
So the next one, the consulting technical assistance available through the Pivot website, are they separate from the 10K or included as part of the 10K expenses? So any assistance that you get through the marketplace would be included as part of the 10K grant.
Yep.
No,
go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Is agricultural zone businesses eligible? So we landed on that, yes, as long as it's not residential, basically. Sorry, it keeps on scrolling too.
Yeah, it's hard.
I already have more than $10,000 in expenses for pivoting my business. 2 questions related to this. Can I submit all of them and then just be reimbursed for 10,000? If not, and I try only submit based on 10,000, am I able to submit others if any of the first round were rejected? And I can answer that. So if you've had more than 10,000, you can submit more than 10,000. For example, like if you spent $8,000 on web design and $4,000 on advertising, that would be more than 10,000. So you would only get reimbursed for the 10,000. If you do submit for more than 10,000, and the applicant reviewer decides that there are some ineligible expenses that you submitted, they will be reaching out to you to make sure that if you have more receipts, that you are able to submit to reach to the 10,000, that you'll have an opportunity to do so.
I think, Stacy, would you say, like, with just because of the first come first serve nature, that maybe from an expediency perspective, it would be preferred to submit more than the 10,000, right? Because that back and forth might cause you a delay, and then the money might run out, for example, right?
Yeah,
so
agreed.
I would say probably submit more to be safe.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Okay.
The next question, could a downloadable PDF of the application be available so we can go through it on our own? Not everyone has a computer at our office.
Ooh, okay. Well, we'll have to take that back.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure.
I
do know that you can start the application and save it and go back to it. So you can go back to it when they have availability and access to a computer at a different time. Right. But I'm not sure if you can download the application.
Yeah, but all of it has to be submitted online. So yeah. Yeah, but having a PDF might be good, just so people can see it or something. That's a good idea.
Is there a process to appeal the must be in a commercial space requirement? We are an eco-tour company that leases access through ag land. So it sounds like you have a lease of your business space through agriculturally zoned, and that's acceptable as well. You would just need to provide a copy of your lease agreement in the application. Technical question, for line item budgets. With tax, our total is over 10,000, and the system won't allow a number over 10,000. So how do we list the expense items to correctly reflect our true cost? Or do we list the items to equal only 10,000? So I would just enter 10,000, and you can submit the receipt that shows the cost was for over 10,000, and that would be fine. Next question, we are a masonry business with all businesses done away from home, but our company physical address is our home. Are we eligible to apply? So unfortunately, right now, the home-based businesses are not eligible. Meant to specifically ask about taking a class to learn JavaScript. Does it cover that?
As long as the class is part of your pivot though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I'm not sure what kind of business this is in particular, but if it's a business pivot, then it would be eligible, yes.
Doing construction as in to move salon stations to make them social distance appropriate, is that included?
That, yeah, I mean, that's a post 10/1, October 1st. Yeah.
How can we submit more than 10,000? The online grant system won't allow numbers more than 10,000. So I think I just answered that. You can include a receipt that's more than 10,000, but just in the itemized description, you'll be limited to 10,000. Next question, would an upgrade to computer or laptop qualify? Oops. So I think as David said, I think as long as it's related to your pivot, you needed to upgrade your computer to be able to pivot, that would be eligible.
Like a remote workforce operating model shift would be a good example. Mm-hmm. So you're going to want to detail that, right? As I'm showing here in this, there's a description of your justification of the expense and how it ties to a pivot, right? So that's kind of the important piece.
Next question, there are many things I would need to expand and pivot, which cost a lot of money, especially in terms of technology for my industry. That is why I haven't been able to grow. I'm scared to go out and purchase these things without knowing I would qualify, and these things be approved as items required for a pivot. Can you discuss the security of taking this leap at a time when I'm already spread too thin and on survival mode?
I think that's a very fair concern. You folks, I think this topic has come up before around expense reimbursement versus couldn't I have just been given a grant, or like a loan or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll just say is that it landed on expense reimbursement, I think, because that was the cleanest and clearest way to kind of abide by some of the rules that was set in place for the use of the funds. So for that person who submitted it, all I can say is I empathize with this. There was a lot of conversation about, do business owners have money to invest and then, maybe they won't get reimbursed, So so the bottom line on this is your investment in your pivot. I would make that decision independent of the expense reimbursement. Does that make sense? So you're going to do this because you think this makes sense for your business to get through this stronger and survive and get stronger. Don't do it just because like, oh, it's free $10,000. No, that's not the intention, right? It's really to make a good business decision, and then this money is there to support that. Okay, hopefully that helps.
Okay. Last question for now, I think. Did you say all expenses must be incurred between 10/1 and 12/31/20? So the covered period for the eligible expenditures are actually from March 20th through December 30th, not December 31st. And it's just the physical distancing measures. Those expenses are after October 1st. And then final question, one more question. I would like to purchase some equipment to develop a new product. There is a backlog for production of the item. Will I have to take delivery of the product by December 30th to meet the grant requirements?
Yes. There's one more. We are an arts organization and we purchased camera equipment and laptops so that we could live stream our classes. Is this an allowable expense? Yes, under the pivot, right? So again, this goes into your application, and you explain your pivot, right? So it sounds to me when I read this something around pivoting to a live stream delivery, reaching probably a new market, something like that. And this equipment expense was related to that. There's one more question that came in here. Yeah, so hair salons, I mean, I guess, Stacy, the question is, would they qualify for this based on their lease? If their operations of their business is in a commercially zoned location, then yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm answering this question, Diana, correctly.
I don't see, I think I am not seeing the questions possibly that came up before I joined.
Oh,
But
I see.
But is the question about the hair
I'll read
salon?
it. Yeah, I'll read it. It's a similar question as Brandon, but for a hair salon where stylists lease their stations, will they qualify for this grant and their lease along with other requirements?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So I think as long as it's in a commercially zoned location, and most hair salons would be, I'm not sure how hair salons document that lease of the chair space, so to speak. But hopefully, you have a lease agreement between the owner of the salon and your chair that you're renting out, and that should qualify.
okay. Gina, I don't know if there's any more questions. This is pretty good timing. Let's see here. If there's any other questions. I would just like to do a couple things in closing. One is that I want to point you again to the online marketplace on hawaiibizpivot.org. For those of you, that sounds like a lot of you are starting to think about what kind of pivot. There are 10 different categories of service providers there for you. And over what I had heard, over 100 different service providers. So the good news, like I said, that the folks who are participating in this already know about the program. In other words, they know their rules around the November 23rd and December 30th. So that will go a long way towards, I think, helping to make sure that everything's aligned. But it's always best, right? Don't assume it, but always best to just confirm it with everyone when you're doing it. The other piece is just super important, is that timing is of the issue, right? So do they have the capacity? Does a service provider have capacity to take your project on and deliver it in time so that you can submit it for reimbursement? So that's a good question to have with them. Yeah. And so one last thing then is I want to just point out, these are the upcoming webinars that you folks might find interesting. Again, the November 2nd, which is recurring revenue. This one is going to be, I think, quite interesting because we'll get into the actual tools of what, there's 9 different subscription models, and you'll go through the questionnaire and tool, and that'll find the best subscription model to fit your business. And we'll also go through some short videos on that one. There's also a calculator to help you evaluate how you're doing on your subscription model, because it is a big shift for a lot of folks. Creating Market Uniqueness, again, it's just about the better mousetrap and the marketing strategy. So we'll also take you through a tool for you to define that as well. And then growing your business, helping you assess that risk, right? The product market piece, so you can assess the risk of expanding your business at this time. And then the last one is scaling. So how do you start to determine when is the right time to hire or outsource and be able to free yourself up so that your business can grow? These are all kind of on the slate. You do need to register on hawaiibizpivot.org under the workshops. And then the 2 panels that are pretty exciting on November 2nd at 1 to 2 p.m. with Roy and Chef Mavro and Heis. And then on November 12th, MW, Feast, and Nabia Maido. It's your chance to also, I think, ask them direct questions. But I've talked to them, and it's pretty interesting, I would say, exciting to see some local companies doing some pretty creative pivots that I'm sure will inspire a lot of you. But I think if that's all, and make sure there's no other questions. Want to really thank you for your time, and I hope this was helpful. Please reach out to us, to the chamber, and we'll be able to respond to you. And if there are any questions that were unanswered, we always try to update the FAQs, so you can check that as well. Stacey, I don't know if you have anything else, or
Nope, that's it. Thank you everyone for attending.
aloha, and good luck with your pivots. Okay, bye.
Bye.